let me just remind you, your biggest chunk of your exam is going to come from your lecture notes. So indirectly, the biggest chunk of your grade is going to be your lecture notes. As today, we're just going to kick this off. Yes, sir.
Good question. Isn't like the difference between law and morality why you have a judge and jury?
Let me do this. Hold on to that question. We're going to talk something about that a little bit. If I don't get to it today, ask me again in class. I'm going to pull that together. Great question. Yes. I will tell you this. I do the best I can. I've never done it before because I don't think it's the same. It's not equal. But because of the world in which we live now, I'm putting them on Schoology as best I can. But it's not everything. I'll tell you that. Because, well, I'm limited in the time that I can record as I'm taking it up right now. But I only get 15 minutes. If I get them 15 minutes, great. Sometimes I just can't get there, though. Now, title these ones, this is law basics. Now, let me kind of explain first as to sort of the big picture of this. What we're going to be doing today is really very foundational stuff. We're going to be talking today about just how we come up with our laws, how they're created, and really just sort of the theory behind it. As we go forward with this, we're going to be able to build on that and talk some more specifics. So first up, today, what I want to talk about is just what a law is and how they come into existence. So first up, our laws are put in place as a way for us to bring order to our society. When I say that, what I mean is we have a set of laws, a set of rules that we agree to live by. And there are going to be basically standards as to what to adhere to, and then punishments when you do not. Because our laws are in place and enforced by what's called a controlling authority. Now that's kind of painted with a very broad brush. Really what I want to say is our laws are in place and enforceable by a government. Now we have all sorts of different levels of government and laws that we must adhere to. We have federal laws, we have state laws, we have local laws, all piled on top of each other, and they all have to be enforceable. If they're not enforceable, it's just words on paper. So now I want to do this real fast. This actually goes back to what we've talked about and what you know from government class. First up, out of our three branches, we need two of them to come together to make a law. Now do you remember, who's the branch who writes it out, who actually creates the law? Legislative makes the law. So the House and Senate, they write it out, they vote on it, and then once they vote, if it gets majority vote in both houses, who has to sign it? President has to sign it. So we have legislative and executive, somewhat coming together to make a law. Now, I say that because legislative makes the law, they create it, but it's the executive's job to enforce it, to put it into action. So now I want to use my little scenario today. I was speeding, I'm sorry, but I didn't get caught. It's a good day today. Let's talk about enforcement. First up, I was speeding, I admit it, but it wasn't enforced against me. Why was that law not enforced against me today? What has to happen? Gotta get caught by whom? By the police. So really, they're kind of a part of the executive branch. They put it into action. Now I gotta say this too. How do they enforce it? What has to be done for them to pull me over and enforce that law? See it happen, you're absolutely right. Let's be a little more specific though, because they can't just look at me and say, you're going a little fast. Gotta know what speed I'm going and gotta know what speed I'm supposed to be going. I was going 30 and a 25. I'm sorry, again, I apologize. So they gotta get like the radar guns, right? Okay? Let's just say they got me today, they got me on the radar, I was going 30 and a 25. Now what happens? See, what was that?
They decide whether to pull you over?
Sure, they decide, maybe if you're going 5 over, they're not pulling you over, but I did break the law. So let's say they did pull me over, show me the radar gun, and say, yep, you were doing 30 and a 25. So now what happens? Give me a ticket, I go to court, and say, I'm sorry, I should be better, I will pay that fine. That's the enforcement of that law. Now I gotta say it like this too. Can I go to jail for 20 years for speeding?
No. Yeah.
Depends how fast you're going. You could, I guess, but that's going to be very draconian. That's a controlling authority that's abusing their power. We need to have some kind of set agreements on what are acceptable punishments and what are not. Now, we're going to talk more about that going forward, but I do want to say this. Laws are going to be really a reflection, almost a mirror, really, of what a society deems to be important. Where they say, if we're going to put a law into place, it's not going to be just haphazardly. We're going to put a law in place because this is what we want our society to deem to be important. Now, I always kind of use this. If we were making a society, if we were creating a country today, what do you think would be like the first law we put into place? What do you think would go first?
Something like murder law?
See, I get differing answers, but most of the time I get people say, we are going to make murder illegal. Because that's like the basis of our society. Now again, going back to my little example. Should speeding be illegal? I like my teenagers being like, no, it shouldn't be.
Yes, it should.
It should be illegal. Because it's a safety concern, right? You can't go 100 miles an hour through a neighborhood. That's dangerous. So we say 25 miles an hour, that's the limit in a neighborhood because that's what's important to us. Now, that law is probably a little far down the list if we're making our society today. But eventually we get there because we say that's a safety issue. Now, our society, our rule of law, this was back to the founders. They said, we are going to be a society based on law, not a society based on men. What they're referring to is, we are going to set up a system where our laws rule over men, not men making their own choices. Now, I bring this up because the founders did not live in a society like that. The founders lived in a society that had a king who was judge, jury, and executioner. He could literally do anything he wanted because he's been told, literally, his entire life, that you are above the law. You can do anything. Now, let me just kind of play this out. If you are from a very young age told, you will one day be the ruler of the biggest empire in the history of the world, and you can do anything you want. Do you think that might kind of affect decisions that you make? Do you have really any consequences? You can do anything. Now, the founders rebelled against a king. Do you happen to remember which one it was? King George, which one? The third. King George the Third comes to power, and he is he's very much an absolute monarch. He can do really whatever he wants. But his grandfather was a great example of this. His grandfather was in the same scenario. He could do anything. And his grandfather had a bit of a problem in that his wife could not produce a male heir to the throne. She had a handful of girls. That's a problem because you need a line of succession. So the king simply said, I have a problem that I need to fix. I need a new wife. But divorce was unacceptable. So you need a different way to solve the problem. What do? He literally called her into their bedroom and said, you're an enemy of the state. Off with your head. Had her executed so he could get a new wife that would produce a male heir. So walking through the streets of London one day, found another woman who was really cute. But she had a problem. She was already married. Can't get divorced, so what do? Solve the problem. Yep, called her husband into his bedroom and said, you're now an enemy of the state. Had him executed, married her. She couldn't produce a male heir. So what do? Solve the problem. kill her, find another girl. She did produce a male heir, but she wasn't that cute. So what do? Solve the problem. This is an absolute monarch doing whatever he wants. The founder said, no one is above our laws. No one is higher than the law. Now, this really sets up what we're going to talk about as far as what we really base our laws upon. Like I say, laws are really a reflection of the society, because our relationship between our laws and values is basically going to be connected. What we have as our laws are going to show what we believe is most important in our society. Now, like you guys said, if we're making a society, we're probably saying, number one, first thing we say is murder's illegal. But do murders still happen? What this is really showing is as a society, we've agreed that we are going to make murder illegal, and anyone who breaks that law is going to be punished. Not by a king with absolute power who can do whatever he wants. You are punished by society. You are punished by basically all of us, saying that you have broken one of our fundamental rules. Now, I believe this kind of comes back to where I wanted to, because Zach, your question, what was your question again?
Like a judge and jury, the difference between morality.
Certainly. Because we're basically taking that power out of the hands of an individual and giving it to a judge and a jury. Where, let me kind of play it out like this. Without society, without rules and laws, if someone wrongs you, if someone say, murders your brother, you go get revenge. With laws in a society, we simply say, we take that power out of your hands and put it into the societies. Judges and juries. Now, there are 4 big areas that our laws are based upon. Now, I'm going to give you kind of just a description, and then I want to give you an example. So I'm going to hustle this a little, but I think I'll get there. First one is we have just our moral values. We base laws on just fundamentally what's right and what is wrong. Now again, I go back to, if we were just starting a society, what would be the first law that we create? We would say, we have a law that makes murder illegal because as a society, we promote the protection of life. Now, if you're looking at the morality of all this, you can go back to the Dudley example and say, well, what they did was wrong, but they did it so they could save 2 other lives. There's very much a gray area with that scenario, but for the most part, we can say our absolute foundation is based on what is right and protecting that. Now, the second big area is we have economic laws as well. Now, am I going too fast or am I okay? A little fast? Okay, all right. Okay. If we're talking about economic values and economic laws, our economic values are really based on the idea that we want to protect private property. We want to protect what is yours. Now again, going back to my other little example, if we were a society without rule of law and someone steals your car, you simply murder them and take your car back. We take that power out of the individual's hands and we give it to society. So I want to just give you this example. We have laws against shoplifting. Now that might be something really minor. But again, it comes back to what society values. I will tell you this. I know someone who shoplifted 1 bag of Sour Patch Kids. It was 59 cents. He put it in his pocket, walked out the door, and immediately got a hand on his shoulder. It was the police. They got him red-handed. I always remember this. It was like, why did you steal something that's 59 cents? And he just goes, I don't know. Right? You stole someone else's property, and now you got to pay for it. Now, 59 cents, so minor. But it's much bigger